Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here. Welcome back to the servicing table / railway, whatever you want to call it. Welcome back to another teardown. So last time I did the Hornby D16 and I was saying in that video that was, in my opinion, an example of a really good quality mechanism. So today I'm going to be looking at the Bachmann model. This is the Bachmann 7F. Still an absolutely beautiful model, but in my opinion the mechanism in this isn't quite as good as the Hornby one. And in fact, in general, I would say that seems to be the case. Generally, the Hornby mechanisms tend to be far superior to the Bachmann ones. Now, it's the build quality that Hornby struggle from, not necessarily the design. With Hornby, the designs are normally top-notch, but the execution of the design is normally where the flaws come up. But if you get lucky with Hornby, you know, their models are definitely the best runners. With Bachmann, the designs always tend to be slightly poorer than the Hornby ones, except the execution of those designs is always better. Well, nearly always better. Most of the time it's better, and therefore you see a lot less quality issues. I'm not going to say no quality issues, because that isn't true, but very, very rarely do I get a Bachmann loco with quality problems. But as I say, in terms of design, Hornby have it. In terms of execution, Bachmann have it. But I'm going to show you this today. This is the 7F. So I'm going to grab myself the cradle, as usual, and let's get to it straight away. So I'm going to do pretty much the same as I did last time. I'm going to expose the axles and take a look at the pickups and the bearings and whatnot first, and then we'll move on and take a look inside at the guts and things. So we'll deal with the motor first of all. We'll deal with the loco first of all, and then I'll take a brief look at the tender, but there's not much to see there. So I'm just looking whether I need to remove the brake rigging or not. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this without removing it. Although that front screw looks like it might need to be removed. I'll try it, let's try it. Where's my screwdriver? I'll do these back too. Now this is a nice design in that the screws are not directly underneath the brake rigging pieces. Sometimes with Bachmann and indeed Hornby, they're placed in a really inconvenient place so that you have to take the brake rigging out. This one is designed so that you may not have to, with the possible exception being this one at the front, but we'll try it. Let's stop waffling and try it. But yeah, it may well be that I'm going to have to take those out at some point, but hopefully not, hopefully not. Let's take a look. So yeah, this is, what is it, a 280 7F, quite a big loco compared with the D16, but it's not much more complex. Right, let's see if I can get this out then. Shouldn't really do this. If you're going to take yours apart at home, I would strongly recommend removing the brake rigging, but in the interests of time today, I'm not going to. Well, I'll try not to. Let's see if that's free to move. I might take off, yes, I will take off the front pony here, just so that it's out the way for when I take the body off. So the front pony, as you can see, let's just take a look at the design of this for a second. You've got this sort of spring underneath. I don't know if you call it a spring, but I think that sits on underneath the bogie and it just helps keep it down on the track. And it's not a bogie, it's a truck really, isn't it? But I think that's the purpose of it, just to help it stay on the track, and this way it doesn't flap around on there. So it's quite nice, quite common with Bachmann, they've done that for years. Okay, right, let's see if this pickup plate is free to move yet, or it might need some more persuasion first. Let's see. Let's grab another screwdriver. I'm wondering whether it's attached at the back here, but it might not be. Let's take a look. This doesn't seem to be too free at the moment, so then it might be that there's another screw somewhere that I've not managed to notice, but I don't think so. It might be that this other screw is holding it in place. Yeah, but that's definitely not moving. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take out the brake rigging then, just so that I've got easier access to all of this, because that screw I didn't manage to get out all the way. I thought I might get away with it, but obviously not. So with the brake rigging, you've got to watch it, haven't you? Because it can be fragile, but this one's not too bad. Just get this one popped out. You've got those sanding whiskers in the way as well, so that's that's something else to worry about. Okay, is that free now? Just pull it out from under there and rock it back. There we go. This way I haven't got to take it off entirely. And yes, the pickup piece seems to be free. And as expected, it is this screw stopping it from moving out. So the brake rigging had to come off really. Okay, let's take a look. So once again, this has got the nice design, and Bachmann don't always do this, by the way. There's a lot of Bachmann models that don't. But again, you've got the two little contacts here which go to the chassis, obviously, as you can see there, and they make contact rather than having a wire. And as I said with the D16, that means you can take this pickup plate out of the way, you can put it to one side, and you've got full access to the axles, which is fantastic for cleaning and such. But if I just show you this, you can see, unlike the Hornby design, the D16, this loco does not have any turned metal bearings, and in fact I can lift these straight out, as you can see, and as you can tell there, they go straight to the chassis, the axles, and if we look, you can see quite horribly the bearings here are square. They're not round bearings. They are square, so that is terrible. I really don't like that. For such an expensive model, that is crazy that there aren't, well, first of all, that there aren't turned metal bearings, but apart from that, the fact that they're square is just ludicrous in an expensive model. So you might be asking, so why does it matter? What's the advantage with turned metal bearings? Well, on Hornby models, for example, they have sort of, I don't know what they're made of, they're probably brass or something like that, copper, I don't know, I'm no expert. But they're sort of little rings that sit on the axle basically, and they're a perfect fit to the axle. The axle really hasn't got any room to move inside those. And then those bearings are slotted into the chassis where, once again, they're not free to move. And so you've got pretty much zero movement on those locos, which means it's going to be quiet, you're not going to get the rattling noise, and it's going to be smooth too. And it also means that without any movement at all, there's not going to be so much wear and tear. With these, the axles aren't held quite as steady. As you can see, there's slight forwards and backwards movement, left and right and whatnot. I suppose you always want a bit of left and right, but they're certainly not held in as snugly as they would be on the Hornby one. And over time, that small amount of movement causes that extra wear and tear. But yeah, it's a real shame that, because obviously quite a few driven axles here. You've got 4 of them there, because this is a 280. There's going to be quite a bit of drag, I would have thought, because of that. And yeah, certainly with some decent bearings on there, I imagine it would run quite a bit better. But it doesn't run badly as it stands, I have to say that. I'm not going to say this is a bad runner by any stretch of the imagination. But okay, let's pop this back on then. Did I get that the right way? Yes, I did. Always a worry. Let me just double check how this goes on. Yeah, there's sort of, if you look here, there's lugs at the front. So you've got to sort of lug it in at the front first, which I'd forgotten. But if I do it like that, that should go in a bit easier. Yeah, there we go. So let's screw that back on. So yeah, strike one. I don't like that. This is a very expensive model. In fact, it's close to twice as much as the D16. That's not the RRP, by the way. The RRPs are quite similar, but yeah, the D16s are going for 75, 80 quid. These 7Fs you struggle to get for less than 120, something like that. So quite a bit more expensive. Obviously it's bigger, but it certainly isn't better in terms of features. But that's only one strike, so we won't go too far on that. Okay, I'll attach the brake rigging. I may edit this bit out depending on how long it takes, but I'll try and do it relatively quickly. Obviously I do this quite often, so I get quite a bit of practice at messing around with brake rigging. Yeah, I won't need to cut this out, this isn't taking long. There we go, that's all back on, just double check. Yeah, that's back on. Okay, what say you we try and get this body off then? Let's see what's inside. And if any of you know Bachmann locos, if any of you own them and service them regularly, you'll know that they're mostly very similar inside. But we've come this far, might as well finish the job. So that's a screw at the front. It's a good job I did take the front bogie off, because that screw there was covered by it. And then usually they're attached at the back as well. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of wire in the way here, so you've got to be careful of that. That's another thing that is quite common with Bachmann. It's always the back screw, which is annoying to get to. Not too bad on this though, and sometimes the back of the brake rigging also gets in the way of undoing that back screw, but not so with this, so that's not too bad. Okay, so let's try and lift this out then. I can't exactly remember how this comes apart, but I think it was just those screws, so I'm going to try and find somewhere where I can grab this where I'm not going to do any damage. Let's try the cylinders, and what I can actually do is remove the tender coupling. That's just out the way there, and let's try again. Let's try and lift this out. Just trying to think if there were any other screws, but I don't think so. There we go. Yeah, just ease that out. It's coming out. Oh, there's a lot of wires on this one. Wires everywhere. Okay, let's move the body slightly out of the way. There we go. And yeah, this is the pretty standard Bachmann design actually, although there aren't normally as many just loose wires dangling around here. That's really a bit shoddy, isn't it? But as you can see, you've got the motor here. It's the pretty much classic Bachmann motor. There's I think there's a fair few locos that use this particular motor. As you can see, it's quite small for the size of the loco, and most of the chassis, as you can see here, is just empty space, and you can see it here on the body that it is just a flat piece there. So yeah, I don't know why I'm bothering to show that, but yeah, there's that. But also something that isn't too good is the fact that the worm drive here is completely exposed, and also the gears just below there are. Let me turn this round so you can see it a bit better. If you remember on the Hornby D16, this was all hidden under you know, an assembly of covers and things, which helps protect it against dust and dirt. Obviously there's not going to be a lot of dust and dirt inside there, but with this one it really is quite exposed to the elements. So yeah, there's not much to it, as you can see. It's just a 3-pole motor, by the way. I think most of the Hornby ones have 5-pole motors these days, but yeah, these Bachmann ones I think are just 3-pole motors. Not a lot of difference really. You tend to get 3 and 5-pole motors, which both perform really well, but yeah, only a 3-pole motor. So once again, the price of these is pretty amusing. But yeah, there we go. It's really quite a simple thing, isn't it? But generally quite a nice design. It gets a massive thumbs up on the fact that the pickups aren't wired onto the chassis, and I will do one of these with a loco that has the pickups wired to the chassis, and you'll see how inconvenient that is. But that is a nice thumbs up. But apart from that, you know, no square bearings, relatively cheap motor. Well, I won't say cheap. I'm not saying it's cheap. It might be a relatively expensive motor. I don't know. But it is only a 3-pole, and it certainly hasn't got the protection and the shielding that the Hornby one did. But okay, let's put this thing back together then, if I can, and I'm going to be careful not to disturb the part of the valve gear here. I suppose it is part of the valve gear. Not an expert really, but those do look a little bit fragile, so I'm going to be careful not to knock those. And of course I've also got to keep an eye on these wires so that they don't end up getting stuck in the body. So I'm trying to secure those in place now. Oops, they're just popping straight back out. If I can just manage to jam the body on without them coming loose. It's really the only issue is them getting trapped in between the chassis and the body. I don't want that. But that ought to be okay, I think. Okay, let's see how I'm going to do this. Let's just flip it over and try. Make sure those wires stay in. Are they all in? Yeah, that looks good. And the little tender drawbar has got to slip in there, but I could do that later. Oh no, it's gone in now. Okay, that saves a job later. So you've got to get these little bits of linkage rod, as you can see, to hook around the rest of the valve gear, which is a little bit of a nasty thing to have to do, really, isn't it? But yeah, that looks like it's in okay. So what I'm going to do is screw that back in. I'll make sure the tender drawbar is in, obviously. Just lift that up slightly and push that in. Okay. Double check. I'm not actually convinced that this has gone on properly because it's putting up quite a bit of resistance. So I think what I'll do is before we go and take a look at the tender, I will power it up and just make sure it's running without a click or anything like that, because that wouldn't be good. Screw it in, both ends. Not too tight obviously, but you want it to be held in properly. Right, let's double check that that is working then. Let me grab my crocodile clips, crocodile leads. Make sure the power's off. Yes, it's off for now. Hopefully the tender pickups are going to be working. Move out of the way. Yeah, as you can see, that's working alright. I think. Yep, seems to be. But yeah, that's the loco back together, and as I say, it's running, so that's fine. Okay, very quickly then, we'll take a look at the tender. I'm not going to go dismantling the tender, because really you can see from the outside how this works. So again, with the wires, for some reason the plug for the tender is right in the middle of the tender rather than at the end, and so obviously they've needed quite a long length of wire, although the length of wire is a little bit too much. Obviously there was way too much inside the loco. But yeah, obviously the decoder socket on this model is inside the tender, and there's also space there for the sound, which is I suppose why they do it. But as you can see here, the pickups for the tender are on the outside, and the middle axle here doesn't have any pickups at all, but you've got these sort of little copper pieces which touch the axles. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see them there. They stick up from the body of the tender or whatever, and they touch the axles here, which are insulated here with a little plastic piece, as you can see, and that works. It's not great, to be honest. I prefer the Hornby way of doing it, where the pickups touch the actual wheels, and with that you can have all 6 wheels picking up rather than just 4 on the tender. But with a lot of Bachmann tender engines, you don't get tender pickups at all, so I guess we should just be pleased that this has it full stop. But okay, let's pop this last part back on then. I'll put the front bogie back on with the spring, of course. I think it goes on this way, actually, doesn't it? You know, I can't remember. I think it's that way. It should be obvious if I've got it on the wrong way, hopefully. Put that on there. Yeah, I think it was that way. Screw it back in. Get this screw back on there. So yeah, hopefully you can see then. This isn't one of the worst Bachmann designs, by the way. This is probably one of the better ones. But you can certainly see that it's, I don't know if we could say cheaper, but it's certainly simpler than the Hornby one. And I don't like to say that corners have been cut, but it's certainly not as polished as the Hornby mechanism, is it? But, you know, what can you really say? It runs okay on the track. It is a good smooth runner. Fair amount of pulling power as well, so can't really complain. So there you go, that's my teardown of the Bachmann 7F. If you enjoy these teardown videos, do let me know in the comments. And as always, if you've got any locos that you'd like me to do a teardown on in mind, let me know, and if I've got it, I can definitely do that. But next time, I'm going to be doing a teardown of quite an interesting diesel, one that I mentioned a few weeks ago that I was going to do. So I'll look forward to that, and hopefully I'll see you then. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Cheers, everybody.